Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos, hey, my friends, welcome. My name is Jedley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you and the entire planet from the beautiful, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. You know, I am a lifelong believer that the family that reads together grows together. Every time we sit down to share a story, we're building stronger bonds, sparking creativity, and planting seeds of kindness in young hearts. That's our mission here at Reading with Your Kids, and we'd really appreciate it if you could help our mission grow by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Audible, Castbox, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really excited about this episode of Reading with Your Kids. You've heard me say it before that I love speaking to authors and illustrators, learning about their creative process. That's what we're doing today. We're talking to two author-illustrators. First up, Steph Littlebird is here to celebrate her new picture book. It's called You Are the Land. And later in the show, Charnel Pinckney Barlow will be here to celebrate her new picture book, Two Artists, Granddad and Me, celebrating the wonderful relationship she had with her legendary artist, grandfather, Jerry Pinckney. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by When Jungle Jim Comes to Visit Fred the Snake, written by Dr. Peter Cotton. Have you ever missed a friend so much you wish they could travel across the world just to see you? And when Jungle Jim comes to visit Fred the Snake, Fred is feeling really lonely. He misses his good friend Jungle Jim and all the wild adventures they used to share. But true friendship doesn't fade with distance. It finds a way. So Jungle Jim does something amazing. He sets sail on an old shipping boat, braving the wild seas, all to visit his buddy Fred in South Carolina. And he doesn't come alone. He brings along a whole animal menagerie and even a very special guest, a charming lady snake named Bernadette. This delightful story is filled with humor, heart, and the kind of joyful imagination kids absolutely love. But more than that, it's a beautiful reminder that friendship is worth the journey and that we're never truly alone when we care about one another. Written by Dr. Peter Cotton, who we loved having on Reading with Your Kids, this is another wonderful adventure in the beloved Fred the Snake series, a collection of stories that celebrate kindness, courage, and connection. So snuggle up, read together, and take a trip across the sea, because with Fred the Snake, every story is an adventure, and every adventure is filled with heart. We are going to have a great time. I always know when I'm going to have a great interview because, like, me and the guests have just talked for about 10, 15 minutes and had a great time. And, you know, we should have hit record earlier. Our guest is coming to us from Washington State. She is the author and illustrator of You Are the Land, great new picture book. Please welcome to the show, Steph Littlebird. Steph, how are you?
I am so well. Thank you so much for having me.
Delighted to have you on. Tell us about You Are the Land, please.
Well, it is my very first, my book as both an author and illustrator. I have been an illustrator for a few years now in children's books. And so this is the first time I've gotten to tell the story as both a writer and illustrator. And it's really about a young person's relationship to the land and how their community and family teaches them about their connection to the earth. And it is really told through the lens of Indigenous culture. I am an Indigenous person, and so it's really about how we in our community out here on the Pacific Northwest, like how we, communicate those roles and values to our younger generations. And so my hope is that not just Native people, but all people can connect to the messages in it, which is really just about us being part of the land as human beings.
It's interesting. I didn't realize it when Steph and I were talking, but Steph and I just had this great conversation about the United States and how vast and different and diverse it is. And it isn't until times when I was telling Steph I had a great epic cross-continent adventure and drive, and a lot of times we take our surroundings for granted, and we don't even see what we're walking through a lot of the times. There's so many times, and I feel really bad about it. You'll be driving by something for years and years and years, and then it gets torn down, and then you drive by and you see the empty lot and go, what was there? Why can't I picture what I saw for years and years and years?
Yeah, well, that's that, sort of taking for granted, especially for humans who live in cities, I think, you just sort of block a lot of it out because it's so much, and you're just like trying to get to where you're going. But, our paying attention to those things is actually sort of where we can unlock the magic of the world.
It's interesting. Interesting. You said that there's so much in cities that we kind of block it out. There's when the snow finally leaves, I'll be going back. It's a pond that I love to hike around, here in our area. And it's really beautiful. And, I notice things on that hike, when I'm hiking, and if a branch is fallen, or if, a fallen branch has been removed or whatever, I pick up on that really quickly. So I think it's, we kind of block out the stuff that we make, but we're more aware of the stuff that is nature.
Well, and it's like easier when you're in nature and you don't have, cars honking or machines whirring, those things, that sort of tune out the more subtle vibrations of our world. It's like when you can be immersed in it, you begin to see things differently. And then when you visit places like that, say throughout the year, you will start to notice how it changes and evolves throughout the year because you're spending time with it, right? As opposed to, being in a city all the time, you may not notice those things because everything is human constructed, right? So we just it's just part of the, sort of the collage of of the world of the city, which is quite textured and layered comparatively to, say, a forest,
It's interesting. I love how you phrase that. When I'm taking that hike in the forest around the pond, I'm spending time with it.
Mm-hmm.
That it is a thing, a being. I dig this. Thank you for there's an intention when you created You Are the Land. You said you wanted to share the indigenous kind of outlook, or talk a little bit more. I'm 5 years old. What do you want me to know about the way indigenous people, cultures are looking at nature and at our world?
So I think something just kind of that came through when you were talking just a second ago was a very specific line from the book. And it's about how the child is themselves a mountain and the hills are relatives. And this idea that the land is a relative, it's a family member, and that if we can engage with it in a more conscious way, the land has a lot to tell us, has a lot to share with us, has a lot to teach us. And that is really what Indigenous culture is Indigenous culture is what's called place-based identity, and that every day our lives really revolve around the cycles of the land, and that our culture as Indigenous people really is tied to what's happening on the land at that specific time. And so that goes into even deeper into our culture, and that we have what we call econom, which is our stories that we pass down. But we only tell those stories during a specific time of the year, and that's after the first frost. And so there's this idea that there are places and times where these things are appropriate and that they relate to the land and the sort of timing of the earth and its cycles. And so, but you can only really know that if you are paying attention to it, right? If you are tuning into it. And so there's something really beautiful about just being more observant, because the land will reveal all kinds of knowledge to you through just being present.
What a great message for our kids, especially in these times when kids are being and adults are glued to their devices, and these times where kids are getting alignment problems because they're looking down at their device all the time. To help our kids become conscious and mindful of their surroundings, whether it's a city or out in nature or just at home, being more conscious of the people that they're with and what they may be feeling.
Yeah, well, because people are the land too, right? So that's the whole point of the story, is that we see ourselves as separate from nature, but actually we are ultimately inextricably linked, right? And that our family is the land. And when I say the hills are our relatives, I'm trying to sort of draw in these connections, but that also you will realize that your relatives themselves are like a tree or a hill, and that they have ties to the earth. And actually, a young student to me said this last week when I was out reading my book for the first time. They were like, we literally can't exist without the earth. If the earth wasn't here, we would not be here. And it's like, yeah, it's really that plain and simple. So we need to reconnect also, because the young people are facing a very challenging future because of the climate crisis. And unless we reconnect to our humanity as beings of this earth, we're not really going to be able to solve those problems. And so I really want young people to feel that connection so that they can explore it. And then by exploring it, they will strengthen that knowledge, which will help them be good problem solvers in the future.
Mm-hmm. Where did the idea for You Are the Land come from?
It actually came from my agent. So I am a fine artist. I make work for adults in like galleries and museums. But then I became a children's book illustrator about 4 years ago. And my agent was looking at my work that I share on my social media, which is geared towards adults. And it's teaching about these same things, about connection to the earth. And she was like, this would be an amazing idea for a children's book. And at that point, I have never written a manuscript for a children's book. I'm a writer, but I've written in like technology and art criticism, so much more analytical. And so she really she challenged me to translate that idea that I had been working through for adults into a children's book. And so I'm so grateful that she did, because it makes so much sense, and actually is really important if we, want to arm young people with the sort of right framework, mentally to approach these problems going forward, because it isn't through separation that we fix these things. It's through reconnection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me what was the biggest challenge for you to get this message that you're typically sharing with adults and translate that for kids?
I think what it is that children's books are really the most precise way that you can communicate, and that, most children's books are under 500 words. And so trying to condense these somewhat abstract concepts that I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is a hippie concept, that there isn't like any weight to it. But as I know, as a person who comes from this culture, that these ideas are not just like abstract, they're real, and they impact how we live our lives. And so it really was about me trying to translate all of these concepts that I think are hard for adults, and really like distill it down for children. And so that was a challenge, but I think a lot of the artwork also does a huge amount of that legwork and really just tying young people to the land through visuals. And so, yeah, it was really fun, but it was a challenge to sort of distill these really kind of abstract, emotional feeling type messages into something that's like real and sort of tangible in a way.
Yeah. I'm curious that you mentioned you started illustrating kids' books 4 years ago. That first book that you illustrated, how challenging was that to realize, I gotta tell half of this story, and I gotta kind of come from me. I'm not gonna get in the phone. The publisher doesn't want me getting on the phone with the author to find out what she's thinking or he's thinking.
It was a huge challenge, because I come from fine arts where I was like painting an individual painting, so, like, maybe there's narrative within that painting, but definitely not carried out over 32 pages. And so that was my first challenge, is thinking about how to tell these stories visually, and really just like reaching into my own experience as an art consumer with comics and things like that, and media like films, and really just starting to sort of wake up my storytelling skills, because I have them as a visual artist. I just had to like expand them. And so it was really fun, and I'm still getting good at it. But I think that what's cool is that many of the stories I've worked on have been related to Indigenous culture, Indigenous history. And so this is something that I am always working on as an artist outside of the realm of children's books. So it really is this amazing combination of all these things I do in my world as an artist, not just as a children's book illustrator, and getting to sort of combine them all for this job has been really magical. And I feel like my work is serving its highest purpose in children's books. So, the challenge has been worth it. And, I thought, oh my God, these people are crazy to hire me to do this. But actually the people that I worked with for my first book were incredible, and they really like led me through the process and helped me sort of come up to speed. And so, I'm working on my 10th book now. So I feel like I'm doing okay. I've done a good job so far.
Excellent. Hey, you got to help me. And I apologize if this sounds irreverent or whatever. I love art, and I checked out some of your art on your social media page. I love the colors. It's vibrant. I don't understand. I was at, and I know these versions of this exist in different places, but I was at a museum of modern art up in Quebec City. And, there's this one painting. It was huge, and it was blue. And that's all it was. And I didn't get it. And I've asked this to a couple of, especially artists who identify as fine artists. And I'm like, is that just some guy who conned people into paying him a lot of money for, I could have spray painted that, and, so I'm an idiot. I'm dumb. So just educate me so I can appreciate the blue or the orange
Sure.
every time I see it.
I am the same kind of person, because I came to the fine arts world sort of as like almost like a 30-year-old when I went back to art school. And so I had been an artist just like in my life, and I'm also a political activist. So like I'm coming from it from a very much like outsider perspective when I came into the fine arts world, and learning about I'm guessing you might have seen a Rothko painting, and he was famous for his color field paintings, and they're just sort of giant canvases of color. Mm-hmm. And what I was like, I could do that. A kid could do that, and what I learned through my training, whether or not you agree with this is up to you. But the idea was that at the time that Rothko was making those paintings, which I don't particularly care for myself, what he was doing was working through the idea that color can communicate emotion. And so a field of color, when you're with something, can sort of like, can make you feel a certain way. And that is true. I totally think that color has like power, and there's a reason that I use really colorful palettes. It's because I think color, it can be healing. It can communicate all kinds of emotion. And that is like kind of what Rothko was going for. It's just that when people think of art, I think a lot of the times they want to see a skill. They want to see something that like they can't do. But in a way, it's like Rothko was really like sort of exploring the emotional side of thing as opposed to sort of the representational of like, I'm going to draw a picture of a person or a flower or whatever, like he was really just thinking about color as a way to communicate emotion, feeling, and what can, these big fields of color do emotionally to a viewer. And so I'm not a huge fan of the work personally, but I understand his motivation, so I can explain it. But, once you explain it, that really is up to the viewer whether they agree that his work is actually doing the thing that he thinks it's doing.
Okay. Yeah, I won't share what I came away feeling, what my emotion. Tell me, now that you've written, You Are the Land, your first author-illustrator project, are you planning on doing more?
Yes, I am. I'm actually working on 2 manuscripts that I'm trying to turn into my agent and have her be like, these are ready to go and show to publishers. And then I'm working on my 10th book right now that I'm just an illustrator on. And so I'm sort of working, but also we are living in a time right now where the publishing industry, particularly the children's book sector, is experiencing a pretty big downturn because of the current administration's defunding of public libraries. So last year in 2025, over 150,000 public libraries were defunded by the federal government. And those libraries were big investors in the children's book market, because children's books are instrumental to early childhood development. And so libraries keep a lot of children's books on hand because that is part of their audience that visits them, right? But because of that defunding, the industry is sort of in a retraction right now. I just saw that Simon & Schuster just laid off 1,000 people. And so, we're in a really tough time. And, I'm not the only person experiencing sort of a slow part, and that, I'm going to try and sell a manuscript, but we don't know if anyone's going to buy it right now because the industry is as sort of at a standstill because of this. And, it's a tough time to be in this world. I came in at a really amazing time where there was lots of opportunity, and now it's like, the complete opposite. So, my hope is that, we will survive this time and, things will come back online for the industry. But right now it's pretty tough.
Yeah. Tell me, before we go, one of the things that I love suggesting parents do is to take a picture walk through a book before they even read the text. So take us on a little audio picture walk through You Are the Land. What kind of things are parents going to want to point out to their kids, and what kind of things do you think kids are going to want to point out to their parents?
I have been reading it to young people, and so it's really fun to hear the reactions as I change the page. And, what I tried to do was to go through many different landscapes within the book. And so it's also a love letter to the place that I come from, which is the Willamette Valley of Oregon. And it's this amazingly beautiful, lush valley that has rivers, and the ocean is close, and there's just so much abundance here. And so the book is really a reflection of where I come from, where my people come from. And so each page is sort of these luscious, beautiful, abundant, colorful landscapes. And then also like there's a outer space landscape in there as well. And just like lots and lots of, beautiful gradients of color that flow throughout the whole book. And I think that, that's what's so cool about my work in this format, is I just get to sort of play with the person's experience and really like draw them in through these beautiful fields of color, and also communicate these really uplifting messages at the same time. And so for me, it's just a really luscious, beautiful, full of color, vibrant color, rainbows and outer space and beautiful green landscapes. So there's lots to sort of be immersed in.
That's beautiful. As you spoke, so many images came through my mind. I was thinking about the time I was lost on a mountain in the Adirondacks for a day, and I never felt scared. There was a concern, but I wasn't terrified because it felt so comfortable. Maybe I felt that connection. And then when you mentioned rainbow, I did a performing tour of El Salvador with a group called Clowns Without Borders. One of my troop mates was from Oregon, and we finished the show, and there's a picture of us in this small community, and it just finished raining, and there's this beautiful rainbow behind us, a double rainbow over a volcano.
Wow.
And and so I just love that you describing the book kind of brought all these these memories, these images that I've lived in my almost 100 years through me. I'm thinking, what a neat thing for a parent to share with a kid just as you're going through. And, the kid who's in his 5th or 6th year of life, it might be seeing something like that for the first time, but it's going to trigger something in the parent. And that's the time I think the parent should say, I remember when. Share those moments.
I think picture books are for everyone, and I not only design them for the young reader, I'm designing them for, I know, a lot of the parents who are reading them too, and so I hope that they will see themselves in it as well.
Yeah. Let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about You Are the Land and find out more about you. Maybe see some of the fine art that you sell, probably for a lot of money, out there in the world.
So, you can go to my website, stephlittlebird.com, if you want to learn more about me. I have social media. I'm on Instagram under the handle ArtNerdForever. And, I share all of my work on there, and I'm always updating on all kinds of projects that I'm doing. And if you want to find a copy of You Are the Land, it's pretty much all over the place. You can go to the Penguin Random House website if you want to look at all the different distributors, but, I think it's a Target, Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble. It's all over the place. So it's findable. You just search it on Google and you'll find some place to buy it.
Yeah. And if we always encourage our listeners to go to their local indie shop and ask for it, and then also go to the library. Go to the public library and say, could you please? Because the kids need to connect with their nature, and Steph does a great job. And so we've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of You Are the Land. It is the debut picture book from our guest, Steph Littlebird. Hey, Steph, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
My honor. Thank you.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is sponsored by Ramble Office. Before I tell you about Ramble Office, let me tell you about what travel used to look like for me. When I take the Reading with Your Kids studio on the road, it was like a lot. I had one box for the mixer, another case for microphones, a satchel for my laptop, cables everywhere. And I always felt like I was forgetting something. That's why Ramble Office really clicked with me. Rambo takes everything I used to juggle, tech gear, personal stuff, and puts it into one smart, great-looking unit that's designed to be a mobile office, not just luggage. Everything has a place. Everything stays protected. And when you get to where you're going, you're ready to work. Instead of digging through bags or repacking your life every time you move, Ramble keeps your setup organized and ready to deploy. Travel days stop being chaos and start being productive. It's sleek, modern, built for people whose work doesn't stop just because they're on the move. And if your job follows you, whether that's podcasting, teaching, consulting, or creating, Ramble is worth a look. Go to rambleofficeanywhere.com, all one word, rambleofficeanywhere.com. Use the promo code READ, R-E-A-D, and receive 5% off any product. It's exclusive for Reading with Your Kids listeners. Check it out today, rambleofficeanywhere.com, promo code READ.
Attention, this important consumer alert is brought to you by CBC Funding. Hey, did you know it's possible to receive upfront money from your structured settlement, annuity, or pending lawsuit? It's true. If you are receiving a structured settlement spread out over time and you want a lump sum amount delivered immediately, then you need to call CBC Funding. With your cash today, you can pay off credit card debt, pay medical bills, fund your education, or improve your home. You don't need to wait. Structured settlements are commonly used to resolve personal injury lawsuits. Annuities, they're designed to spread payments out over 10 or 20 years. For many of you in need of money today, this simply does not work. If you have a structured settlement and you want cash now, call CBC's Settlement Funding. Here's the number.
800-442-0665. 800-442-0665. That's 800-442-0665.
Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by AspireDrinks.com. Hey, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted a little extra energy, but not the kind that makes your heart race or leaves you crashing an hour later? Well, that's exactly why I want to tell you about Aspire Drinks. You'll find them at AspireDrinks.com. Aspire calls itself a healthy energy drink, and honestly, that description really fits. Instead of loading you up with sugar or extreme caffeine, Aspire delivers a gentle, steady boost with 80 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea and guarana. That's about half the caffeine of most energy drinks, enough to help you stay focused without the jitters or the crash. It's also zero sugar, 0 calories, and 0 artificial additives, which makes it a great choice for parents, teachers, and anyone trying to make healthier choices while still getting things done. And get this, it actually tastes great, light, crisp, and lightly sparkling, with flavors like sweet cherry, raspberry acai, mango lemonade, that's what I love. No heavy aftertaste and easy on the stomach. Aspire is packed with B and C vitamins, biotin, and ginger, and it's vegan, gluten-free, keto-friendly, really designed for real life. And just for Reading with Your Kids listeners, you can get an exclusive discount of 20% off. That's the highest discount available when you shop at AspireDrinks.com and use our promo code READ. That's READ at AspireDrinks.com. Healthy energy done right. Join us right now from the great state of Illinois. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new picture book. It's called Two Artists, Granddad and Me. Please welcome to the show, Charnel Pinckney Barlow. Charnel, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Delighted to have you on the podcast. I received a copy of Two Artists, Granddad and Me. I really love the feel of the book and the illustrations. It feels just like the title, like, hey, this is about me and my granddad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about it and tell us a little bit about your granddad, because this is autobiographical.
Yeah. So my granddad is Jerry. Well, he passed away a few years ago, but it's Jerry Pinckney. And he's a world-renowned, award-winning children's book illustrator. And so growing up, I spent a lot of time with him in his art studio. So this book is like an ode to all the time that I spent with him and sharing that world, with the public, because, you know, a lot of people know his books, they've seen articles, they've seen museum shows, but what they didn't get to see is like that intimate time where, you know, I spent time with him. He would pick out books for me. And we draw together. And so I wanted to really share those moments that a lot of people didn't get to see.
Well, that's really beautiful. We love celebrating intergenerational friendships here on the podcast. I think they're so valuable, to have. I have shared a lot here on my, that I had a very close relationship with my grandmother. We did all sorts of things together. She would ride in the back of my motorcycle. We'd go to the WWE together, and
Cool.
It was very cool. And it was just wonderful to be able to spend time with this person, and who had a lot more experience than me, knew a lot more, knew something about my parents, which was very helpful. And so I love that this is first about a friendship between you and your granddad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, what was that like, knowing that your granddad was the author of all these beloved children's books, but you were the one who got to sit in his studio and draw with him?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of like, an everyday thing where it's like, I knew he was a children's book illustrator and, going to like elementary school and stuff. I'd bring his books in or like the teachers would have his books and they're like, oh, we have your granddad's books and stuff. But it was like, one of those things that was just like a part of my world. So like my grandma's an author, my granddad's an illustrator, my aunt and uncle are authors and illustrators, my mom and my dad also, my dad's a photographer and him and my mom did books together. My mom was an author as well. So it was one of those things where it was kind of just like in the family. So I knew it was special, but also it was just something that, was always available. And I definitely did not take that for granted because I've always been a lover of books. Like I love reading. And before the podcast started, we were talking about the Poughkeepsie Public Library, and that was one of my favorite places to be. Like I am a book kid, a library kid. So it was just something that I found a lot of joy in.
Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing you did not experience what a lot of people who choose to go into the arts experience, which is the parents sitting down and going, "Oh, okay, Sharon, now you love to draw, but what are you going to do when that doesn't work out for you? What's your backup plan going to be?"
Yeah, so that's one thing that I really appreciated was that I saw from an early age, like this can be, a career option if I wanted to do that. And I decided I wanted to do that around maybe 10th grade, 9th, 10th grade. Before that, I wanted to be a chemist. So if I wasn't an artist, I probably would be a chemist right now. But yeah, so I wasn't ever told like, oh, like you can't do that. Don't be an artist. My mom did try to get me to do like a double major with like graphic design. She's like, oh, just a little something. And I'm like, no, like I hate graphic design. I'm not doing that. But other than that, like, my family was always very supportive of the route that I wanted to take.
Well, I'm really happy that you didn't become a chemist. I don't have anything against chemists, but I helped a friend launch a STEM-based podcast, and we had a chemist on, and I had absolutely no idea what this woman was talking about. I had talked to astronauts and oceanographers. I talked to the world's leading oceanographer, and that was great. This woman came on and started talking chemistry. Right. I think that's why I'm bald on the top, because it went right over my head.
Yeah, I like the puzzle aspect of it and like the, mixing things together and the equations and stuff. I don't like math per se. Well, I didn't like calculus. That's what it was. I did not like calculus. I quickly dropped out of that class, but with chemistry, like I like the puzzle aspect. And I think that's why I like art as well, because it's like, putting different things together and seeing what it creates and seeing, what happens and, just getting your hands messy.
Yeah. Calculus, boy, I have a niece who is very close to graduating with a degree in biomedical engineering. And I've asked her, tell me what calculus is. And all she'll say is, I hate calculus. I'm not talking about it. And in a way, you're kind of mixing things together and see what happens, because I've talked to hundreds of illustrators here on the show, and I know everybody's process is different, but there's a bit of magic, whether you're creating art or telling a story with words, that, you have an idea and you know where you're starting and you have an idea where you want to end, but everything in the middle, we don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. And even like having an idea of the end, like for me, and I always found this very interesting when I'm writing a book, I thought because, I'm inherently an illustrator. Like I think with pictures and stuff. And so I illustrated maybe about 6 books before I started writing. And so this is my second authored and illustrated book. And so even with my first book, I thought like, oh, I'll probably start off, with images, pictures, trying to figure out the feel. But I could not work that way. I had to start off with the words and like focusing only on like the manuscript and what that's going to be like. And then once that was sent to my editor and we got it edited and stuff, then it was like, okay, now I can kind of separate myself from the writing part, and then go to the pictures. Now I can think about the pictures because all the puzzle pieces for the writing are in place.
Okay.
And so with this book, I knew I wanted to do collage. And I knew I wanted to have a lot of like watercolor elements and stuff because my granddad worked in watercolor. And so that's the only thing that I knew that I wanted. And then I kind of played around with texture and color, and cutting stuff out. This one was done with, blue colored pencil on paper. And then I cut out the paper and then I did some like watercolor collage and stuff on top. And then I also took photos of like all of my art supplies. And so all the art supplies that you see throughout the book are my actual art supplies.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, it's like I knew the general area of what I wanted to end up with. And then it was like trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I get there? And just kind of letting the magic happen as I went.
Did you, this may sound like a silly question, but did you, feel your granddad kind of nudging you in certain times to go a certain way or use a certain technique?
Yeah, I kind of, wanted to get into that mindset of, the time that we spent together and remembering, all the things that he would say as we're working and the stuff that he taught me. Because he's the one who kind of taught me about watercolor because that was his main medium. And so he bought me my first like professional watercolor set and he bought me my first like sketchbook. And so I, kind of let that feeling and, his essence kind of guide me as I was working with this one.
Well, my beautiful wife does watercolor. She takes lessons and she loves it. And I think she's amazing. What kind of tips can I share with her?
Oh, how long has she been doing watercolor?
She just retired, about maybe three or 4 years.
3 or 4 years. Okay. So, as someone who's already working with it, I would say to not force anything. Like watercolor likes to, it likes to move, it likes to flow. And so I feel like especially like with my own work, when I try to get too rigid and structured with it, that's when you start kind of overworking it and things get muddied. So let it breathe, use as much water as possible. And layering is always wonderful. Especially like my granddad would always, start with like, a light wash of yellow ochre. And then he would build his colors on top of that. And so I always thought that was really interesting and just the warmth that would bring to his final images and stuff. So layering is definitely another thing that I would suggest.
Cool. What's one thing about your granddad that we learn in the book that we might not have learned if we were just fans of his work?
Well, one thing that is a theme like throughout the book is sound. So music was a big part of the atmosphere in his studio. He would always have music playing. He'd have like a stereo that was up on one of the bookshelves. And so in the morning, he'd have like more upbeat music playing. And then as the day went on, it would be like softer, like jazz and stuff, And so depending on what time of day it was, depended on what kind of music was playing. So I always thought that was really interesting. And so that's one of those memories that kind of sticks with me. Like when I think about his studio, I think about music.
Okay. Is that something that you carried into your own studio?
Yes and no. I mean, I feel like I work very differently from a lot of people because it depends on what mood I am in. And so sometimes what I'll usually do is there will be a soundtrack or an album or something that I just put on repeat for a particular project. So when I was working on Two Artists, Granddad and Me, the album that I had on repeat was the Hamilton, the Broadway musical album. And so it has to, for me, like the criteria, it has to be something that I'm very familiar with. I know all the words. I don't have to like focus, on the music. It can kind of just be there and just help me focus and flow. So for this project, it was Hamilton.
All right. That's cool. Cool. Tell me, was there anything as you were creating the book and putting the puzzle pieces together to get the manuscript done, was there anything that you remembered about your granddad that surprised you, that you had kind of forgotten, and that the writing process kind of brought it back to you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think so. I think for me, it was more so of having all of these experiences from over the years and trying to figure out what pieces I wanted to pull from. Mm-hmm. And so I went through like some of his old interviews and stuff. He would always give me pamphlets from like museum shows and stuff like that. And I would kind of go through his interviews and kind of think about what we talked about personally and the stuff that he would suggest for me and show me and try to figure out, okay, where are the overlaps and what was something that I experienced that other people, didn't get to see. They didn't get to read in these interviews or see on like the YouTube interviews and stuff that he would do. So yeah, so it was more so of like trying to pick and choose what I wanted to put in. So one thing that ended up being cut out was when I was really young. His first studio was in the basement of their house in Croton. And so there's this stairwell that you have to walk down to get, to a studio. And then there's like a small hallway. And then you turn the corner and it kind of opens up into his office. And so I just remember like a 5-year-old just kind of like trying to walk down the creaky steps, and it was like kind of dark, and then all of a sudden it like opens up. And so I remember having that in the original manuscript. It was like one of the early edits, and it was like, oh, like you walk down into the studio, and then we ended up cutting that because it's like, I don't know if we really want to start off the story with like walking down, into like a dark space or whatever. But that was like something that was a very inherent memory, but it was also like, well, it's not necessarily needed for where we want the story to go. So it's always interesting, like the stuff that gets put in at first, and then I take it out, and then we put other stuff in, and yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, I'm usually, we have a lot of authors on who tell me, well, this book was inspired by my daughter, my son, our dog. And, so the natural question is, so what does your son think about the book now that he's, inspired this book? I'm curious what the rest of your family thought of Two Artists, Granddad and Me.
Oh, they love it. Well, so we've done a few interviews together. This was maybe like a few years ago. But when I was, kind of thinking about doing this book and stuff, and I would talk about, like how he always had music playing and stuff, my uncle was like, yeah, oh my gosh, he really did. And so we, it was like all of the different experience that we've had because, we're all individual people. We weren't always there at the same time, but just the general like feeling of being with him in his studio, like it was such a unique experience, and being in like a different world. It's like he created this little bubble of joy. And so I think they find it very satisfying to, see that on paper.
Mm-hmm. That's really such a treat. And again, those intergenerational friendships, boy, if your kid is close to a grandparent or an older aunt or uncle, really try to encourage that because it's something that will last a lifetime.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're never going to forget the times that you spent with your granddad.
No.
And now the world's going to get to see. I'm curious what kind of conversation you think families can have as you're curled up on the couch reading to artist Granddad and Me.
Oh, I think there's a few. So, you mentioned that first aspect of having a relationship and a friendship with, an older guardian, parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, whatever that may be, and having that kind of like mentorship and that companionship. And then there's also the aspect that I talk about throughout the book of being a young artist and realizing like, oh, wait, like I might be young, but I'm an artist too. Like, and knowing that everyone sees the world differently. Mm-hmm. And so everyone has a story to tell, and putting that down on the page or making music, telling your story, or, writing a play or whatever that looks like. Everyone has a story to tell, and there's no right way or wrong way to tell your own story.
Yeah, that's so very important. Are you able to give us a sneak? I won't tell anybody, but can you give us a sneak preview of what you might be working on next?
Oh, well, I have a book coming out in May. Let me grab it real quick. It's behind me. It's called Cowgirl Dreaming, and it's by R.J. Owens. But this is the cover.
All right. Very nice. We'll see a young girl on a beautiful horse with the mane flying. They're kind of doing one of those jumps. I've been on a horse 3 times, Charnel. And all 3 times I experienced one of those things and ended up on my butt on the ground.
I've been on a horse once, and the horse was very boisterous. I wasn't quite a fan, but this book redeemed horses in my eyes.
Okay. That's coming out in May?
Yes, that's coming out May 5th, I believe.
Wonderful. Well, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about 2 artists, Granddad and Me, and also find out more about you.
Yeah, so they can go to my Instagram. My handle for Instagram is Call Me Chartreuse. And then my website as well, which is callmechartreuse.com.
We've had a really fun time speaking to the author and illustrator of 2 artists, Granddad and Me. And our guest has been Charnel Pinckney Barlow. Hey, Charnel, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap for this episode of Reading with Your Kids. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedley Magic on X, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website, readingwithyourkids.com. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, you absolutely want to visit readingwithyourkids.com. Click in the author's Click Here button up at the top of the page. Find out how you can be a guest here on the show. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlit fans all over the world about your fantastic children's book. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Steph Littlebird. Please be sure to check out You Are the Land. Also want to thank Charnel Pinckney Barlow. Please be sure to check out 2 artists, Granddad and Me. I want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Jackson Sadalero. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join us today. And thank you, as always, for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.